drag, dressed resembling a girl. If gender is assumed to be binary, with the masculine on the one side and feminine on the other, then drag exists as something else. A distinction that marks it with mystery and misunderstanding, with glamour and violence, with gendered tropes and the potential to transcend.
Plucked her eyebrows on the way, shaved her legs, and then he was a she.
In 1966, police abuses against non-gender conforming individuals leads to a crackdown at Compton's cafeteria in the Tenderloin district of San Francisco. Riots ensued, and our queens threw bricks just as well as they threw shade. It was a balmy New York June in 1969, 3 years later, when a police raid on the Stonewall Inn, a raid targeting the queer and trans communities, was met with righteous resistance. As drag queens stood with their queer sisters, the modern queer liberation movement was born.
There's this history of drag kind of leading the charge as far as standing up for what's not right.
If you're not a drag queen, if you're not someone that, you know, is trans or, you know, crosses those gender norms in terms of your appearance and the way that you behave, then you can fly under the radar. Well, we don't have that option, and, you know, some of us don't want that option. And so we get put in these situations where we are forced to, you know, sort of take a stand.
At the time, trans and drag identities were considered all part of the same transgressive community. Now, we acknowledge the distinctness of the two, where trans people are assigned a sex at birth that is at odds with their gender identity. Drag queens are, for the most part, men who explore gender as performance and art.
When you're a drag queen, there's often the feeling of like, what do I have to lose? Because I've committed to doing this thing that the world tells me is ridiculous and wrong. And so, in some ways, we're maybe the first to stand up for something we think is wrong.
For me, ultimately, it is a celebration of femininity and also a kind of a fuck you to patriarchal society.
For me, drag has been more about embracing this sort of rebellion of gender. I was made fun of for being like a girl, and so this sort of embracing this exaggerated, ridiculous, absurd form of female, for me it's more about celebrating my queerness. Tranny Shack was this club that had just started when I moved here in 1996, and it was really a place for drag performers and really trans folks of all varieties.
Tranny Shack, that bastion of poor taste and high art, a hall of fame for glittering filth and excess. Here enters one bedazzled hulkling for Star Search, an annual affair to crown the next big wig in San Francisco drag. The competition is fierce, but she is fiercer, and Shaka Khan begins her reign as Miss Tranny Shack.
When I first moved here, I made a bunch of friends that were drag queens. Whenever they needed a boy in their number, they would call me. Me and some drag queens were standing backstage. We were looking at the poster for the next Tranny Shack, and the stage manager comes up and stands next to me, and he's like, "You're probably going to be in a lot of these numbers. These are all your drag family members, you know, they're all going to need a boy and they're all going to call you." And he kind of looked at me and he was like, "Well, do you want to do it for real?" I went into the competition like planning to not win because there were all these seasoned drag queens going up against me, and I had never done drag before. I was very self-aware of what I was going to look like. I knew I was going to look like a roided out woman in a dress. I didn't know how to paint my own face or tuck or any of that stuff. I couldn't sew anything to save my life. So I was like, you know what, let's just go do this. Let's have fun. Let's throw everything we got. Put the kitchen sink at it. For the competition, I had all these ideas in my head. I was having trouble narrowing one down, and this was right around the time that Russia was holding the Winter Olympics, and there's like these street gangs that like abduct gay kids and they like beat the shit out of him on camera. And I was reading online, you know, articles about what was going on over there. And then I was like, ding! And I was like, I think I found a tranny tech number.
A new Russian law effectively banning homosexuality.
When I realized what his number was going to be about, I have to say I kind of thought, ugh, no. You've bitten off more than you can chew. Why would you do this? Your number's never going to live up to the challenge.
It's art, so you can put it up there and say, hey, this might make you uncomfortable, but you know what, this is me using my platform for a good cause.
By the end of that number, I was jumping out of my stool, cheering, jumping up and down, like she had nailed it. It hit all the right buttons. I might not ever be someone who meets violence with violence. It doesn't mean that I wouldn't applaud it if I saw it in a movie or on a stage, or especially in something as silly as a drag number, where it was a fantasy. Tranny Shack was and should be offensive. That was kind of part of its mission statement when we began. We were celebrating the irreverent and the transgressive.
Half of me was like, holy crap, like, that's so cool. Like, oh my gosh, I won. What the hell? I didn't see that coming at all. And then the other half of me was like, oh shit, I gotta learn how to do this for real now.
Well, I think there's a lot of stakes when you're becoming a drag queen. You may be limiting what kind of job you can get in the future. You're certainly never going to be president. You know, there's certain dreams you can just kiss goodbye.
I think the wonderful thing about drag is that it allows you to recreate yourself into whatever you want to be.
I always get so sad when I shave my chest. I'm like, I feel like I'm doing a mercy killing of my chest hair. I'm just like, it's okay, you guys, you'll grow back.
You know, it goes from, you know, one side, which is, you know, being passable as a woman, all the way to another side, which is, you know, gender bending and, you know, being a bearded lady and, you know, having hairy legs and your cock and balls out.
I know I look ridiculous in drag, and, you know, we'll never pass on Muni for a real woman. For me, the way I look right now, it doesn't take any bravery or strength or security to like walk down the street looking the way I do. So I'm very aware that I have an advantage. Yeah, I think that's good. When I first started doing drag, I was like, okay, I could go like one of two routes. I could go the route of, haha, she's a humongous muscle-bound mutant in a dress. That would get old really fast. People would be like, okay, we get it. Chocolate corn works out. Okay, she's got muscles. Then I was like, no, I think it'd be cool to like go like the nerdy route, which is, you know, where my brain goes anyway. So that's why I was like, I'm gonna do a Mega Man number, I'm gonna do Lord of the Rings and Harry Potter. I feel naked and I feel like I look like a 12. Well, I look like I'm 12. 12-year-old girl on growth hormones. Bang, bang. There goes your heart. So it's like you point 3 places, like bang, bang, there goes your heart. And you do like a circle with it. Wait a minute, let me take you there. I think that was it. Let's try that, just that part with music.
Hey, so you're going a little fast there.
I am?
Yeah.
I'm sorry.
No, it's fine. It's just apologies.
Yeah, let's put it to count. Sorry. 5, 6, 7, and 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, and 7, and 8, and.
It's out of the frying pan and into the Academy of Science. This ain't Mariah night at a bar, honey. This is drag for a wider audience. And as Shaka's last performance before stepping down as Miss Tranny Shack, the stakes have never been higher. This is about legacy, darling.
Let's hear it for Shaka Corn!
Being bionic is hard.
We saved the galaxy and all the
We saved the galaxy and all the queerdom.
Drag goes through cycles. You know, there's moments of popularity and then moments where it's not as popular.
I don't think it's mainstream, but certainly its level of exposure is at an all-time high. I hear people say like, oh, the Castro is not as gay as it used to be. Gay people now live all over the city and don't feel confined to one neighborhood. Most of my friends who are drag performers, one thing that we all have in common are pretty shitty childhoods. And so I would hope that that will change in the future. I think that drag is giving an entrance into like, you don't have to be afraid of this.
When a queen performs in drag, she is channeling something ancient and modern. A performance that acknowledges that male and female are not opposing forces, but components of a human experience larger than both. It's a reality we choose, a reality we construct, rather than one blithely handed to us. Do not be alarmed. Drag is not new. It is as ancient and essential as death, and it's giving us life.